Yeah, it was just, but then I was like super busy when I came back tonight. Did you go back? Yeah, I went back in today, and
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's 6:30, 18 March, calling the Universal City Council meeting to order. Call for a quorum check.
Mayor Pro Tem Fitzpatrick. Here. Councilmember Bulman. Here. Councilmember Goolsby.
Here.
Councilmember Putt. Here. Councilmember Rubal.
Here.
Councilmember Vaughan.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Tonight, Councilmember Vaughan will be leading us in the invocation, and then
Dear God, we pray that we have the wisdom and the courage to make decisions that are in the best interest of the residents and businesses of Universal City. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Under the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
we have first up on the list is citizens to be heard. This is an opportunity for citizens who have signed up to discuss areas of interest, bring to our attention anything that may be of interest for future use. I have two people signed up tonight for citizens to be heard. First is Mr. Whitey.
Well, thank you very much.
This is going to be a habit with you, sir.
Yes, sir. Yeah, well, this is a good meeting.
Yes.
Because I just want to express on record to the council that we appreciate your support in helping us prevent the school coming over to Kitty Hawk. I'm not Kitty Hawk, I'm sorry, Cornell Village Elementary School. But I know a couple of you were at a meeting to the Judson ISD board. Your words were heard. Appreciate that very much. I know, sir, you were at a meeting in January, and we appreciate what you did. I was out on vacation the week you actually met at Cornell Village School, but I understand 6 out of 7 of you were there supporting us. So I just want to express on behalf of the committee, we've got, Beth Parker here, Kathy Strait. I don't know if any other of our neighborhood members are here. But we want to thank you very much. And just one final thing I want to say. The statement that was made by the superintendent on that Monday was he used the words, "at this time." So we just want you to understand our group is going to still be active. We may come to you again, but hopefully it'll be in a positive way. But we're going to be watching and listening and attending the Judson Board meetings. But again, thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Mr. White, and special kudos to Ms. Parker for organizing the peaceful protest. Very well. Next is Mr. Billy Hill.
The microphone up here or over there? Right here. All you people, you're all neighbors, so howdy neighbors, everybody, including on TV. I too want to come and compliment y'all, the spectators of the city, because you know how much I raise hell when I hold you on to say that's your responsibility. Don't bring it to me to figure it out. That's why you're here. So I see progress in that. An old man like me, when he mounts progress, well, that's a plus in my books. And again, accolades to all of y'all, along with all of Universal City, as I've finally gotten involved and tried to learn it. To update this year, the last year that I kind of threw all this out. Progress, how do we continuously improve when an old man like me is sitting up in the back seat of the stands and able to see some of the old overall 30,000 foot view. I'm going to use an analogy, no teleprompters, notes, or nothing like that, impromptu, so forgive me. of how I viewed in my perception, as we all seek first to understand, and compliments to your meeting. I see that happen. It was last Sunday. That's good. And your prayer was to lead us by wisdom, and knowledge, and direction. So if I use the analogy in 2025 for the country as well as the state and Universal City, I compare it to an NFL football team, to where we've gone from the Roman Coliseum to where the winner was the one that stood living, all the way up to an NFL stadium, huge stadium, and we got this team, we got all of these spectators, and they're all yelling and waving, but all we do is just take away the swords. And the one that wins gets the trophy and the pride of it. But is it good for the whole? So as a team is built of managers, offense, defense, spectators and all that, I use that as an example of Universal City, to where we are a team, and it's Universal City, 20,000 spectators or more. Our field of play, our stadium, is within the city limits of Universal City. We have an offense and a defense, but I still hear hints of minority, majority, offense, defense. I'm going to try to use the analogy to say, we got offense and defense on this team. This is our locker room. You all change clothes and go to the restroom in this one locker room. And when you go into executive decisions, executive session, the offense and the defense is to join together, and the whiteboard strategy is to share ways to first seek first to understand, compromise, and come up, as you said, Phil, in a prayer, for what's good for the residents. And you even added both business and residential citizens. Our competition is not each other. Our competition, who we're going up against in the Super Bowl, is other cities. LIGO, shirts. We're limited access to income. We don't buy new uniforms every year. We got to watch out what we got. And the others are blessed with more property and all. So we're going to fight with what we got with the whole team, including the spectators. And we must educate them to where we can't do streets, golf course, senior citizens, parks, fire department, and police. We just don't have enough dollars. And we're not going to be able to satisfy everybody. But hopefully, again, pushing the accountability and responsible on y'all and you're going to come up like with a family and come up with the best decision for this year that's going to do the family the best. And we'll buy another pair of shoes next year. We might even get some from the pumpkin patch to shirts because they need shoes. We don't have these fancy cheerleaders. We've got 100 volunteers that sacrifice their time, life, effort for 20 years so we can go buy $1 pumpkin and maybe sell it for $1.50 and then give those proceeds to where we can't afford for the fire department or the police officer because our budget is limited to circumstances beyond our control. That's a team.
I hate to interrupt, but
And it's over with, yeah. You don't have enough wine in here to keep me up here. I don't know where the cameras are, but I'm speaking to everybody in this city. We're all spectators, and when you go knocking doors this year, tell them how they can help. Don't tell them who to vote for. Tell them how the hell they can help. And as we combine together, our team will win. Thank you.
Mr. Hill, you're an inspiration. Thank you. Be heard over. There's no one else tonight. Let's go to staff reports.
Thank you, Mayor. As you recall, during our budget season, the council had requested that the staff go out and do an RFP in order to get an operational plan and capital assessment for the Olympia Hills Golf Course. You budgeted for that. We had Ms. Fitzpatrick and Mr. Vaughan with some of the staff members go through those proposals, and you selected We recommended National Golf Foundation and council approved them. So Richard Singer is here this evening. He is the representative from National Golf Foundation. Who's going to talk about some of the work that they've done, about his company. And then I know there was a very long report that there was lots of wailing and gnashing of teeth on because sometimes it appears like it's a lot of information. He's going to put that down in some little golden nuggets for you, and hopefully after that he'll have some time to answer some of the questions that council might have. So with that, we'll turn it over to Richard. And Maribel's going to pull up your presentation. I can do your slides if you want. You can just okay.
Just a bit.
You bet.
Good evening to you all. Glad to be here. I know I've had a chance to speak with a lot of you over the last couple of months, but I think many of the folks in Universal City are seeing me for the first time. But I can tell you, you all have been a big part of my life for the last couple of months, though you didn't really know it. And it's been good. You know, one of the things that when you spend your life, as I do, Richard Singer, Director of Consulting for National Golf Foundation, I find myself nowadays, if I had to title myself, I've become a municipal golf consultant. And when you spend your life as a municipal golf consultant, a lot of what you deal with is doom and gloom. These municipalities, they reach that point where they have no other choice but to find a consultant to help them out. And most of the projects I work on, it's doom and gloom. And this has been a really refreshing job for me because this is nowhere close to doom and gloom here in Universal City and what you're dealing with at Olympia Hills. This is certainly one of the better properties, one of the better municipal golf properties that I have been dealing with the last couple of years. And it was refreshing for me to be able to do that and say that to you. The National Golf Foundation is basically a research and consulting organization for the golf industry. That's who we are and what we do, custom research and consulting. We're totally independent. We don't manage golf courses, we don't build them, we don't design them. We're not any other business, any other side business. We're strictly a fee-for-service consultancy. And we lead in municipal golf, as I said. Myself and my partner, Ed Getterall, who could not be here tonight, we have combined 57 years experience in doing this. And it's kind of a welcome to my world. I know you all know Olympia Hills and Universal City, that's your property and that's appropriate, but my life is going all around the country and looking at all these different municipal golf courses. So hopefully I can bring some of that experience to you in this review. You brought us in to kind of provide a strategic review of the facility. You reached kind of a key point in your history with Olympia Hills in that the original debt that you used to finance the golf course when you built it has been paid off. And it gives you an opportunity to kind of press the reset button on the whole property and figure out where are we, what are we going to be, what are we going to be for the next 25 years. Let's review the physical condition of the property. Let's analyze the market that you operate in. Give you some recommendations for success. And some new funding may be available now that you don't have a debt service payment, then there could be some things you can do to improve and modernize and enhance the property. A quick summary of our findings for Olympia Hills. I mean, it's certainly a very popular golf facility and includes all of the elements that are consistent with success in public golf. The good quality golf course, the good quality clubhouse, conditions are good, service is good, fees are appropriate. It all adds up to success typically in public golf. The location right along I-35, although I don't know how you guys put up with all that construction that's going on. And the traffic, but you're still right there. You certainly have a good dedicated staff that really care about the property and are totally vested in it. We had some ideas about maybe enhancing the staff a little bit and providing a higher level of service to your patrons, which we had documented in the written report that we had delivered to you. And I think the multifaceted aspect of it, the golf course and the event center together, they're certainly very complementary to each other and work well together. But maybe some changes, some improvements are on the agenda there that we had identified for you. You're priced right for where you are in the market. And I like the driving range and practice amenities. I'm a big believer in that. Providing people a place to practice golf, which is not that easy to do if you don't have facilities for it. And you guys do, and I think that's a really great feature that you have at Olympia Hills. I think the property is mostly in good condition. But there are some things you're going to need to address. And it looked to us, and there was a third member of our team, was gentleman Nathan Crates, who is a golf course architect and a specialist in reviewing golf facilities. And we had observed some things related to what we thought might have been done in the original construction, some shortcuts that may have been taken when this property was originally built. And 25 years later, some of those shortcuts are coming back to bite you a little bit. And we've identified a few of those things, and we think that there might be some things related to that that would require some new investment. I also think that the golf course is more difficult to play than standard. Difficult for the golfer to get around and play. It's narrow, big bunkers, things like that, can sometimes slow play and make it harder for the average player to play. We had recommended some things you could do to soften the golf course. Add a new set of forward tees, make the bunkers smaller, try to widen up the holes where you can, things like that. The cost of all of that, with some of the things we've been talking about, we estimated, anywhere between 3 1/3 to maybe a little more than $4 million in total cost to do all of that. I would caution you that there is rapid inflation in these types of costs, and by the time this went to print, it's probably already out of date with some of these costs. And as I mentioned earlier, maybe some staff, 12 full-time, 32 part-time staff. Part-time staff can sometimes be difficult to fill, I'm sure, as you all are aware. The facility is generating a lot of revenue. The standard public golf course in America generates about $1.5 million in revenue a year. Olympia Hills did $2.6 million last year, and that was a down year for them. They had a greens renovation ongoing in 2024. They were playing on temporary greens, and they were deeply discounting in order to drive activity. But in 2023, it was a better year. They did $2.9 million, which is almost twice what the average golf course in the country is doing. And it showed an operational profit from 21 to 23. The operational profit on site was between $143,000 and $298,000 in those 3 years. So the property is earning enough to cover its day-to-day on-site operational expenses, but it's requiring additional economic support to cover some outside items that are in the golf course budget, things like depreciation, administrative services, and there's a large stormwater management line item in the golf course budget. And that outside support comes from what you have, this venue tax that you created here in Universal City, that, as I understand it, was created specifically for this property in order to fund it. And recent years, because of the success of the property, the venue tax is needed to cover some of these other items I mentioned, like depreciation, administrative services, stormwater management, but there's still a large remainder after that of the venue tax that could be used for other approved purposes within the city, I assume. I'm going to go through and just show you a couple pictures and comment on a few things that I thought I wanted to point out to you. One, I think the entrance profile and the entrance presentation of Olympia Hills could be improved. It's kind of, not that clear. This also, as somebody, for me, and all the years I have in experience with golf, this looks like a private club to me from the outside. I think you want to make it more welcoming and more clear that this is open and available to the public, that it's owned by Universal City, it's a public golf course, and it's open and available to the public. The drop area that as we call it, for cart staging and bag drop and all of that, and the other picture I think could be improved and more welcoming, so that when people pull in, they know where to go, they know what to do. The tees, I think that we had identified some areas there. I think the tee areas could be enlarged to make it easier for them to be maintained. And also, as I mentioned earlier, a new forward tee that would make the golf course shorter for less skilled players and a little easier. It's pretty narrow. This is a narrow golf course. The PGA Tour pros would struggle with something like this. This is really difficult for golfers, and anything you can do to kind of help widen that out, make it a little bit easier, I think you'll find that it'll add appeal to the property and more revenue will come in. Big, huge, steep bunkers. Not only is this a challenge for the golfers who play the golf course, this is a challenge for the maintenance staff to keep up with this and keep this maintained properly. We had recommended that working with a golf course architect, you work to reduce the total square footage of bunkers on the golf course. I think that will help on both ends in terms of softening the golf course for players and making it easier to maintain. Some cart path cracking that we observed. This is not widespread, but there are some places like this. And interestingly enough, I noticed even just this afternoon that you can see some of this from the hotel. So I think that would be something that you want to try to fix a little bit. This is one of, I think, the issues that we identified earlier. I mentioned about some of the shortcuts that may have been taken in the original construction, and that is kind of the centerline irrigation, which only reaches so far. And when you get to the edges of the golf course, the irrigation is not really reaching it, and you see it in a lot of places like this, where the irrigation system needs to be expanded to cover these areas. This is largely a result of irrigation deficiencies at some of these conditions that we saw. The clubhouse improvements, I mean, outdoor spaces at golf clubhouses have become very popular in the last 5 years. It really hit when COVID hit, and a lot of the clubhouses had to close down, so people started sitting outside, and they got used to it and liked it. And they gave that feedback that that's what they like. And I think that you've got some great, potentially great outdoor spaces, but it needs some improvement. And we had recommended some covering maybe upstairs, fixing the downstairs area where you have a pass-through window for service for golfers. I think that could all be done, very, very well. That's a small kitchen for what you're running through at Olympia Hills. I mean, all those rounds of golf and the banquet center, I'm not sure that you can really expand it. I think that might be cost prohibitive to really make it larger, but I think you could find that you could make it more efficient within the footprint of what you have. And lastly, I would point out that the maintenance facility, could be made more comfortable. I'm a strong believer in comfortable spaces, making it easier to hire people. That if this is your work environment, it may be hard to find people who want to work, if that's your work environment. So it's something to keep in mind. And that's kind of a nutshell of some of the recommendations that we had made, some of the capital recommendations that we had made that we think this property would really benefit from as you start thinking about the next 25 years and what you want to offer the community. Some other observations I'll share with you. I mentioned earlier about the administrative cost. I think it's $300,000 is in the budget for that. I'm not sure that that's what you would find if you went on the open market to find some of these accounting and management services, something to consider. We also, recommended some improvement in the connection between the golf facility and the Town Place Suites Hotel, the hotel that you've added there just a couple of years ago. I think a better relationship between the two would help both parties. The hotel can really help the golf course, and the golf course can really help the hotel. I just found out today, when I was there this afternoon, that I was shown some new sets of golf clubs that they acquired, for the hotel to use and things like that, to really try to create a better synergy between the two properties, which I think would be great. You've got some good technology in place, but marketing golf courses in 2025 is all about technology. It's entirely about technology. Ideas about your website, smartphone apps, GPS, point of sale systems, all of that, making it easy and convenient for golfers to find you and be able to spend money when they're there. All of that is very important. One of the measures that in my report that I gave you is something that I use in a metric. It's called average realized golf revenue per round. That's the ARGRPR. And that's basically the total amount of golf fees you collect divided by the number of rounds you played. And the number for Olympia Hills was a little bit low in 2024, which would indicate there was some discounting going on. But 2024, you had a greens renovation going on. They were discounting in order to attract that volume. It's a metric I recommend you look at. You keep thinking about that. How much are you really having to discount from your stated green fees, your rack green fees that are posted? How much are you having to discount in order to attract the volume of play that you want? And the more you have to discount it, it becomes more problematic. This is a really outstanding property for food and beverage service. I mean, it's got it all, right? You've got the hillside bistro, the banquet center, the on-course with the beverage cart. I'd like to see the pass-through window that you have downstairs open to make it easy and convenient for golfers, all of that. This is very, very high quality, for a food and beverage operation for a public golf course. I know this is kind of small, but the details are in the report. This is the information that you gave me to run through my modeling in financials. I want to remind the council and the city that I'm not an auditor. You didn't hire us to do an audit of your financials. So we relied on the information you provided us, in many cases audited financials that you had given us. And we rearranged it a little bit to present it so that I can use it to compare to other golf courses. That was the key reason for maybe rearranging some of the order that this was presented in. That way I can compare you to the standards, the industry standards for revenues, for expenses, There's a lot going on below the line here. The transfer in the venue tax, interest income, you got a little bit of money coming in for a billboard that you have on property there, and then the things we mentioned earlier, depreciation, the debt, stormwater, administrative services, and ongoing capital expenses. But in all, you can see, I mean, prior to 2024, this was operating in the black, but it certainly took a hard turn into the red in 2024 while your greens renovation was going on. But I would say that you were kind of taking a step back to build for a better future. And from everything that we've seen so far in FY 2025, it looks like it's going much stronger than it was last year. And I suspect you will be right back where you were in 2023. One of the things you also had asked us to look at were some external factors, things that you maybe can't control. Market analysis, what's going on outside your gates, right? And I would say that our research, and this is something that's ongoing at National Golf Foundation, we're doing this on a regular basis, we're studying this. Golf is up in the last 4 years. It has strengthened greatly. The number of rounds played at American golf courses is up 20% since 2020 in the last 5 years. And it's up 18% in Texas in the last 5 years. So there is a lot more golf being played and a lot more golf activity going on. And the demographics of your city, universal city, it's the numbers we ran. I mean, it looked like a little lower than average in terms of the golf participation numbers that we saw for Universal City residents. But you're part of a large metro region in San Antonio. And the balance is in your favor. The ratio of golfers to golf courses is very favorable for the golf courses in San Antonio. A lot of the other markets I work with, one of the real core problems that they deal with is they're oversaturated with golf courses. That's clearly not the case in San Antonio, as we documented in our report. And you're kind of in the sweet spot in the middle. You've got competition that's charging more than you. You've got some competition that's charging less than you. And you're kind of right in that middle sweet spot, providing a good quality product at an affordable rate. And that's where you want to be in public golf. So it's a good space. I know we all are concerned about Big Brother and the way they spy on us, but unfortunately we're all carrying these little devices in our pockets and somebody is tracking you. And we subscribe to services that show that tracking. It doesn't do anything individually, it's just as an aggregate. Here's the aggregate of what's coming on your property. And we looked at it. We looked at the Town Place Suites. We looked at a couple of your competitors. We looked at Olympia Hills. And the only interesting thing I wanted to point out to you is, you know, your clientele is higher educated, higher income folks coming from a lot of places around, in and around San Antonio. But the one thing that really jumped out at me that surprised me is that you have a strong connection to the airport with Olympia Hills, which I thought was very interesting. A lot of people either come from the airport to Olympia Hills, or when they leave Olympia Hills, they go to the airport. It was like the 5th or 6th most common place that people were going to or coming from. And I wanted to share that with you. That's what the tracking data was showing us. It's something to keep in mind for your marketing and how your brand image and all of that, and things that you can do to try to promote this property. So I guess we're kind of winding it down here. We had made some recommendations as a part of this report that we delivered to you. And we do recommend that you complete some of the upgrades. We tried to divide the improvements, the capital improvements that we recommended for Olympia Hills into 3 categories. What we call kind of the need to have, the nice to have, and some other ideas that you could think about to grow revenue. I think you really need to address the need to have issues, which were mainly related to some of the facility condition issues that I mentioned earlier. Some other things, the kitchen renovation, some other things, maybe you're a little lower priority. If you had the money to do it, you should do it, but maybe it's not high on the list. But other investments, improving the driving range, covering the patio, fixing that lower level of the patio, all of that, those are things that will help you grow revenue. You make those spaces more appealing, they'll generate revenue for you. The vast majority of municipally owned public golf courses in America are self-operated by the municipality, the way you do it here at Olympia Hills. 56% of all the municipal golf courses in the country are still self-operated. That was a higher number some years ago, so there is a trend towards some privatization we're seeing. But most of the courses are still self-operated. Our recommendation to you is that privatization only makes sense for Olympia Hills in our mind if you invite a private sector entity to invest these $4 million for you, that would make sense then. If somebody was willing to exchange a large investment in the property in exchange for some type of a lease to run it for you, I think that's worth listening to and worth addressing. But beyond that, I didn't really see where it obviously puts you in a better spot to do it otherwise. We mentioned the technology that supports the property can be enhanced, promote the property and the adjacent hotel, all of that. Golf programming is certainly key. Lessons, events, clinics, camps, all of that with golf go very, very well. You're running a lot of tournaments through Olympia Hills, which I think is great. That's a big plus for for public golf courses. And as I mentioned earlier, improve the food and beverage convenience to golfers. The quick grab and go. Golfers are very time sensitive people. They know what's going on around them. And if you make them wait for something after the 9th hole, they're just not going to do it. They don't want to slow everything up. But if it's easy, it's convenient, I can grab it, put it in my cart, go right to the 10th tee, they'll consume it, and you'll get more revenue from the golfers. We did a 10-year, or actually a 5-year, I apologize, a mistake on that. It was a 5-year projection that we did for you. What, if you made some of these improvements and if you did some of these things, what does this property look like going forward? And I think that, we projected that you could do probably $700,000 better in revenue over 5 years. But unfortunately, the inflation in expenses is more rapid than the inflation in revenues, so you have to be careful about that. You have to make sure you're keeping up with that. There are also some increases in expenses, but I think this facility with the improvements, it should be more profitable than it is. You've seen it in 2025. You did the greens renovation last year in 2024, and you were able to push up fees in 2025, and you didn't lose a lot of your activity. So you're still generating the rounds, you have higher fees, that means more revenue. So you put money into the property last year, it's paying off for you this year. I think the same thing could be said for some of the other recommendations that we have made to make this even better going forward. But even with all of this, I think you still need some of the outside support, the economic outside support to cover depreciation, administrative services, stormwater management, and all of that. Now that obviously comes from the venue tax, but there's still a remainder after that. So it's just a question of how much of that you want to continue to use for the golf facility. And then like anything else, for me coming from Florida, I always say projecting the future revenues and expenses of a property like this is like projecting the path of a hurricane, right? You don't know where it's going to go. There's a lot of mitigating factors that could affect this. But I think all else being equal, I certainly see a brighter future for Olympia Hills with some of these investments and the way you have it all set up right now. So I'll close with this and we'll get on to your questions. I think it's time to address aging infrastructure and soften the golf course. I think that's the #1 priority we see from this. I think you still have to accept that there's outside support required when you consider the total package of expenses that are tied to this property. It needs some outside support in order to cover all of that. But the outside support mechanism you have in place now is the venue tax. And if that's the case, there's a large remainder after these expenses are covered from that venue tax. In other words, not all of it needs to be used to cover the golf course. I think the changes that we're recommending is the ultimate goal behind all of it is how do you widen the appeal of this, broaden the appeal so that people maybe who've never come on this property before would see a reason to want to come there. Either I want to learn how to play golf, I want to have lunch, in the cafe there, I want to host my banquet or my event at the event center, and just to be more aware of it and to want to use it more. And then I think you could, maybe a couple of new positions that we recommended, maybe one in the food and beverage area, one in the golf course maintenance area, and I've always believed in new player development is key. That's the one thing that's great about golf is every new golfer you can develop is new money for you in the future as a new customer. So you have a great opportunity with the practice facilities and the staff that you have to really do that. So I hope I didn't race through that too quickly, but I wanted to get all of it and get to your questions. I think that this is a really unique and interesting municipal golf facility. It really shows well for you and for the city. One of the things that jumped out for me as an outsider coming in is, although, it's a big, broad metro area, the Universal City itself doesn't really seem to have very much. Some businesses along I-35 and Olympia Hills, and that's kind of what you are. So I think it's a great mix for you. So with that, I'll take your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. I appreciate it. It's a very good overview of the reports. Questions?
Questions? Would you like comments now too, or you want to save those for council member comments?
Right now, we're addressing
Just
this.
questions?
Yeah, this is.
Okay. You mentioned that we have the capital improvements that you're recommending, about the 3.2 million to 4.2 million, and in the back you have some financial projections for the future with the revenue growth that you mentioned. Do you feel like all 3.2 to 4.2 is necessary to reach those revenue, or is the high priority items really what's necessary to kind of get those revenue targets?
Primarily the high priority items, but some of the other investments to improve revenue, the driving range improvements, some of the patio improvements, things like that. I did not assume the tournament pavilion, which I had in there as an investment, is not assumed in that. But the capital improvement master plan, the bunker renovation, the irrigation expansion, some of the cart path improvements, restrooms, the parking lot, all of that is assumed, yes.
Okay, thank you. We hear often that the golf course will bring in business or revenue. Did you see any evidence of that, or are there any companies that can help quantify that for us?
I'm not sure I understand.
Well, there's a question of people coming to the golf course might go elsewhere in the city and generate revenue. Do you have any evidence of that, or are there any companies that can help us quantify what that
Yes, I'll answer both questions. In the first question, I think the only evidence I was able to present is the cell phone tracking information that I gave you, which does show a strong correlation between this property and other businesses as well as the airport. But the second part of that, I think, is something that the city might want to consider. If you're struggling with understanding Olympia Hills and what its place is, you might want to have an economic impact study done to see what is the economic impact of this property on Universal City. It does look like there's a large percentage of activity that is derived at this golf course is coming from people who are not residents of Universal City, which would mean they are bringing their money into the city. And whether they actually spend it elsewhere in the city also is a key question that might be worth answering.
My last question for you is, you said this in your intro, I just want to kind of package it for myself a little bit, but would you say a fair summary of your conclusions is that the golf course revenues can basically cover its operating costs, but you're not sure that it will be able to cover all the capital costs that you think it might need? Would that be a fair
I think that's correct. I think that's an appropriate way to look at it.
Great, thank you, Mayor. That'll save my comments for council member comments.
Okay. Anybody else? Ms. Bowman? Sorry, she had her hand up first.
So I was initially really excited to have this done, but I thought this would result in a way to I thought there would be some more tips in here about how to make the golf course more self-sufficient without using taxpayer dollars. So I think I find that heartbreaking for me, because I thought it would have more to it, like this could help you instead of, sorry, you're just gonna have to be a burden on the taxpayers to some degree forever. That's hard for some residents who are against that. With that being said though, I do have a couple of questions that were in this packet that I just kind of wanted your opinion on. So I might be reading this wrong or taking it out of context, but you said only 33% of golf courses can cover both on-site expenses and other indirect costs. So what do the other 67% do? Like, are they just failing, or how do they cover their costs? I mean,
That's a good question, but I'm not sure that I would use the word failing, because I think one of the things that I found in the last 30 or so years that I've been doing this is that municipal golf courses are a different animal, in that they're not truly businesses per se, right? I mean, it's an amenity that you're providing your community and your city, and a lot of communities are agreeing that they're willing to let the taxpayers support it to some degree, provided that it's being run efficiently, that there's no real waste there, with the idea that, yes, the taxpayer is supporting the presence of having a public golf course in our community because we think it has other economic impact and it does other things for our community in terms of property values and visitation to the community. So I really wouldn't use the word necessarily failing, but it is true that 2/3 of the municipal golf courses in this country do not earn enough to cover everything that they have, all of the responsibilities.
what do they do though?
Most of them have either some type of mechanism to support it, taxpayer support. general fund support. Some of them have years where they do well and they put the money aside and they save it for the kind of the lean years. So it's not every year, it kind of goes back and forth. And some of them, look to the private sector to try to support them in some ways. Sponsorships, and in some cases just outright leasing it, like I mentioned earlier, in exchange for some large-scale capital investment is a possibility as well. But I would say probably most of them have some level of taxpayer support embedded into their structure.
Then on marketing, I just wanted to get clarification on this. So it said on page 36, it said you recommend $26,000 to $52,000 for a marketing budget, yet we're spending $130,000 on marketing. And I find that shocking, since also it was like, we need to do the basic marketing like email and social media, and these are things. But if we're spending $130,000 and the recommendation is 26 to 52, that seems like a big discrepancy.
Yeah, I would say that the 26 to 52 wasn't a recommendation. I think that was more an observation of what's standard in the industry. But I think Olympia Hills has a much larger presence on the event center side that makes it a little more atypical. So I think that you would, it would be how much to market the golf course might be 50,000, but then how much to market the event center might be another 50,000. But I always thought that the number that you come up with on that should include people. It's not just what you're spending to actually advertise in maybe a magazine or television or radio or your POS systems or whatever, but having a marketing person, either on staff or on staff with the city, to provide some of those services, I think would be really great for this property.
And then my last question is just page 63. You said your most viable considerations were a new food and beverage contract and a change to a full service management contract. Can you kind of touch base on those? Would either of those possibly get the golf course in a better position to get off of the taxpayer dollars?
Maybe.
Okay.
I think that, let's take them one at a time.
Okay.
I think a food and beverage vendor is a possibility. It's a smaller margin area for you, but I think with the large scale event center that you have, and the large amount of revenue that you're generating from room rental fees, it's hard for me to imagine that having somebody come in and do the food and beverage would really put you in a vastly different position. I think it's a viable option for you, but I don't think it clearly puts you in a better spot than you are now, because you'd basically be allowing them to keep all the revenue from that, and then they would manage it the way they wanted, and then you'd have to get them together with the golf operations and make sure it all works seamlessly, and maybe you'd save a few percent here or there, in all of that. The other one, the management agreement option, I think is growing in popularity, but it comes with a cost. So basically, it doesn't shift the risk. The Universal City still owns the golf course. You own all the revenue, you own all the expense, you're responsible for all the capital improvement, but you're paying someone a fee to manage the golf course for you. And those fees are normally in the $100,000, $125,000, $150,000 a year range. So they have to improve revenue by that amount or more just for you to break even on the option. And in some cases they do, in some cases they don't. I have just as many clients that are struggling with that as I do the ones that are self-operated. So, the phrase I like to use is the grass is always greener on the other side of the fence. I don't know that any of these options really put Olympia Hills in a clearly better position than you are now with the structure that you have, and especially given the quality and the dedication of the staff that you have. I think it's hard for me to imagine it. That's why the one that we thought was really the one that made sense for you is if you could find a private sector partner willing to give you the $4 million to fix it up, that's worth looking at. That would be the one that would be worth looking at.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Well, you already hit on a couple things. If we don't get an impact study, just from what you've seen, if we just kind of put things on the back burner for a while and not make the revenue, there are people who don't want, the golf course to continue. What do you think the impact, or what have you seen the impact is of small cities like ours, that the golf course is a main piece of it?
Yeah, there's a lot of it depends. I have seen golf courses closed, municipal golf courses
Right.
closed, and I've always found that the ones that have a plan in place ahead of time, that look, we have something we want to do with this property. We're looking for a place to put our soccer fields. We've been looking for a place for a better, city park, and we can't find it. And there's this golf course that, tends to be in the red most of the years. Why don't we look at that? And they come up with a long-term plan, and they execute it. A county in Louisiana I worked for had done that. But it was very carefully planned out, and it's been successful as a park. But if it's knee-jerk, if you just, I'm sick of losing money, I'm sick of this, just shut it down and forget about it, that is always a disaster. Every place that I've worked. I did a city in Maryland that did that, and it's overgrown, it's ugly, it's been a haven for homeless, and it's like the biggest disgrace that the city ever did. But they didn't have a plan. They just got angry and they shut it down, and it's become an eyesore for the community. So I would say that shutting golf courses down like that is tricky. But I would say if you had something in mind you really wanted to do with this property and that you've been pushing for, there's a possibility. But given what you have what I've seen in Universal City, I mean, this is like the centerpiece of your whole community. I would think that would be a really scary thing for it to be shut down like that.
It's our only income producing entity that we have, actually.
It's an attraction for people from outside the city to come in.
Having a management agreement is what got us in deep waters before. But you spent a lot of time with our staff, and you've seen the dark hole we came from. Me personally, I think they're very capable. They've brought us to light. So you're just saying if we can get a few more employees in there to help ease the load maybe a little bit, because I know how hard they work, that we're going to be running more efficiently.
Yeah, it would seem to be the case. I think one of your employees got carried out in an ambulance when I was here in December.
I know.
From overwork. So I think that sort of sums it up. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Turner.
I apologize, I'm sorry, I have a question too. Back on the fee-for-service management contract, you had indicated, you said that, maybe that would be the way to go if somebody was willing to put a $4 million investment in there and then have the fee to operate it. But is that under the assumption then that if there were future capital projects that were needed or future maintenance, that they would be responsible for those? Or would that mean that the city would be responsible for those?
I think it depends. I think that actually is not a management agreement, but you described, that's more of a lease arrangement that you described. But ultimately, like any lease, it's a contract between the city and your vendor. So if that's a concern for you, you could put it in there. Yeah. Most leases have some type of minimum capital requirement. So there's the big capital up front, and then over each year you have to put a certain amount in, a percentage or whatever. So you want to make sure that they keep the property on. The biggest disaster with leases is that you lease it to somebody, and then at the end of the 10-year term or whatever it is, you come back and you look at it and you're wondering what happened to this property. It used to be beautiful and now it isn't anymore. I certainly have quite a few in my file that have happened that way. So. But ultimately, it's all about the contracts that you write and that you impose and that you make sure that people adhere to. So, yeah.
Mr. Goolsby.
Thanks, sir. So right now I've got 3 questions. So you're going to try to limit it to 3. You're going to end up with 1. So you made recommendations on your 3 categories of recommendations. What if we don't do any of them?
Well, I think you're going to find that the property will struggle. I mean, a golf course is a living, breathing asset. It's always depreciating before your eyes, and if you don't keep up with it, I think it's gonna get worse. And I mean, it becomes less appealing over time, and fewer people want to play it, and fewer people want to play it means the revenue goes down, and then you have less money to spend on expenses, which means you have to cut even more, and then it becomes even less appealing, and you just kind of get into that spiral.
So kind of like the greens, like as they spiraled down, we saw the drop in play, and then we learned that you have to replace the grass after so long.
You've lived it before, so I think
that's that's not just true for the greens. That's for the facilities and the other aspects.
And a lot of what we've recommended are kind of either catch-up pieces or pieces that correct some of the deficiencies from the original construction. So, yeah.
I love the grab and go idea, and then I love the idea of making. You said something about at the driving range, an automatic ball where I could buy
Yes.
those automatically or something?
Automatic ball dispenser.
I love this idea because I'm a huge fan of going out and hitting the ball where nobody can actually watch me, so that's,
But it's especially important, I think, in Olympia Hills, because you have to go all the way back across the bridge and up back to the pro shop to get another basket of balls, and bring it all the way back down, make it convenient, and you can sell more range balls if you make it
can I
convenient.
sell more adult beverages down there?
Adult, I'm not sure about how your liquor license would work and all of that. I think it's something worth looking into. I've seen a lot of properties do that and do it very well.
Okay, so I was supposed to start off with, thank you very much for this. This was a great piece of information. It was really good golly thick, and I appreciate all of the work that went into it. We did talk about city functions. The city is being cheeky and not cheeky and not paying for rental.
No, that's not true. So when we don't pay a room rental. And so the way it works is, let's say, one of the things that we have out there, the police department does use the golf course meeting room a lot because when they hold training, especially the FBI training, we get 2 or 3 free seats, and it's a very expensive training. So they like to host it because when you host it, you get free seats. Now, Katie and her staff don't charge them the room rental fee, but if they use linen and staff and they have food, they do pay from their training budget. They pay back to the golf course for that. So we're covering all of the food and beverage expenses. We're just not paying a room rental fee to them. The other caveat for that is if a city department or a city meeting or something is going to happen out there, and Katie and her staff have the ability to rent that room out for a private event, we get booted. We always get the private events, first cause. But we try to schedule our meetings when we know that the golf course has the least amount of the use, and that's usually during the week, not on a weekend for sure, but during the week and usually during the day, because weddings don't usually happen Monday through Wednesday, and they don't happen during the day unless it's on a Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. Same with retirement parties, quinceañeras, all the other types that they do. So when we're using it, we're trying to use it at a time when the golf course really has nothing else going on.
Okay.
And I can tell you, Katie's a strong enough woman. She will boot us out of there.
I'd better,
Has
okay.
booted us out of there.
All right, my last question, and you talk about finding somebody to take the $4 million thing, and is NGF interested in this? Or?
What's that?
Is NGF interested in doing that?
As I mentioned before, independent, we don't.
All right. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, I appreciate the Zoom meeting, and I appreciate essentially
Yes.
what you've provided the city. There's some questions that I have, however, and basically, I'd like a definition of operational profit. You mentioned that in your presentation. What is an operational profit in your lingo?
Yes, total revenues generated, green fees, cart fees, food and beverage top line revenue, driving range revenue, all of the revenues, banquet rental, room rentals, and all of those revenues, minus the direct cost of goods that are sold, pro shop sales, things like that, food and beverage costs, and then all the staffing, labor, materials, supplies, and expenses that are required on site to operate the facility.
Okay. Thank you. So essentially, it's more or less that concept is day-to-day operational expenses. It doesn't include what you've termed indirect costs, which are the depreciation costs and so forth, and personnel costs, pension costs, and things like that. So basically, when I take your projected numbers from the year 2025 to 2029, and I take the expenses that are listed there and include the other operational expenses, the indirect cost type thing, and get total expenses, and I look at the cost margin for that over the 5-year projected period, there is a deficit of $3.5 million when using the numbers that were on your data. Now, and just follow me through with a few other things. And then basically, I looked at rounds of golf recommended, and also the change in salary, change in cost for rounds of cost recommended over that period of time. And basically, a couple of questions came out of that, and that is, with your recommendations, essentially, it would require, on average, for the next 5 years, an additional 5,222 rounds of golf per year, with the increased fees associated with the service. And when I work those numbers through, even at that, I come up with a deficit of $1.6 million after your projections. The other thing I'm kind of curious about is whenever you say, and I know you've reviewed data based on what you have access to, but you say part of it, 2024, the operations have been in the black. Using your analogy that revenue minus expenses are what is looked at for day-to-day operations, from 2017 to 2024 by official city audits, the deficit was $3.314 million. And during that period of time, the non-earned income was $7.2 million. During the projected time that you have from 2025 to 2029, essentially you've accounted for the accumulation of venue tax to be included in your revenues for a total of $6.7 million. And when all non-earned revenue is included, it's actually up to $8.5 million. So, yes, essentially, there seems to be a discrepancy between the statement of operational profit and profitability from 2020 to 2024 and what appears in the city audits. So and also, how many cattle can we put in the field in Texas? Can our golf course sustain an additional average increase of 5,222 rounds per year?
Well, there's a lot to unpackage with that. I think that kind of roundabout a little of it early on in your question was about the future projections, and then you mentioned some of the previous history about it. So I'll start with the previous history about it first. You mentioned 2017 through 2024. I know that in 2017, 18, and 19, there were certainly losses on this property, and it kind of turned things around after 2020. And I think if you put all of those together and add them together as a 7 or 8 year stretch, it sounds like that they all would be in the negative. I only got info from 2019 on. But again, you have a venue tax mechanism that seemed to have been covering that. In the future projections, I'm not quite following where your losses are, because that doesn't seem to match the calculations that I had done.
Page 71.
Right.
And page 70, golf course expenses, other expenses, leading to a total expense over the 5 year period of $19,222,000.
So say that again, what's the 19 million?
On page 71.
Yes.
The aggregate total expense.
Okay, so that's
2025 to 2029 is $19,222,000 and change.
What does that include? That includes the total golf expenses as well as depreciation, stormwater, administrative services, and capital expenses.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So it includes the what we are referring to as below the line numbers. I do see that now, yes.
Yes. Okay. So basically, again, if I look at the gross margin, okay, data, I come up with essentially a $3.4 million deficit.
I don't match that calculation because we have the revenue from that, as well as, if we're doing below the line, then we have to include the transfer in, the venue tax, the interest income, the billboard as well. Right? So, I mean, if you include all of those together, I don't see a deficit.
So basically then, you have concluded that our city requires the venue tax in order to meet expenses. And that's consistent with how it's been budgeted.
And that, yes,
in
I think that
in the last 2 years, essentially non-earned income has accounted for 33 to 42% of the golf course budget. And that's been fairly consistent. 30% is kind of the consistent number for prior years back that have been in the budget process. And so I guess I'm sympathetic with Ms. Bulman in saying when we define profitability of the golf course, is it based on earned income, or does will it foresee supplementation for the entire future of the golf course? And it sort of suggests that the latter is true, unless there's a management change or something like that.
well, I'm not sure I'll unpack a little bit the way I see it to respond to that, because yes, Olympia Hills does require an outside mechanism to support some of these items, as I mentioned several times in the presentation and also in the report. But a lot of what it's covering is depreciation, which is a non-cash item, administrative services, which is paying to the city. So it's one city department paying another city department, and if the golf course goes away, you still have all those expenses that you'd have to cover. They just get allocated to other departments. The stormwater management, which I'm not really sure I understand, but although we did adjust it for the future, I think the $600,000 that we had in there, we thought we'd move that to a capital expense, so it wouldn't be an ongoing annual $600,000 commitment. But the golf course revenues that it's generating from green fees, cart fees, pro shop sales, food and beverage sales, driving range, is covering its on-site day-to-day expenses, as we had indicated with each other earlier. It's when you add these other items that we call below the line that it's requiring its external support. But I would point out that a lot of these items that are below the line are not really cash items to the golf course. I mean, depreciation, you don't write a check to anyone for depreciation. You're just sort of setting it aside, right? And then there's administrative services, which are city departments. You're paying for the city manager, the city finance director. You'd have to pay anyway, even if the golf course wasn't there, right? I mean, they would just get distributed to other departments. So I'm struggling to see the deficits that you're describing. But the bigger picture is accurate, that this golf facility does need an outside mechanism to fully support everything it's doing. I'm not sure I agree it's at 30%, but it certainly is it needs it to cover some of these items, no question about it.
Okay, thank you. I think,
Thank you, sir.
I'm sorry, I remember. One of the increases that you said in golf activities, which was kind of impressive, had to deal with non-golf course remedies. So it didn't have to be a total 18-hole golf course. It was driving ranges, simulation centers, I forgot the term that you use, off something or other.
Off course, yeah, off course activities.
Of course activities. Can you see that particularly associated with the hotel type thing? Is there kind of a trade-off between perhaps a 9-hole golf course keeping the hotel happy, keeping the convention center happy type thing, but reducing the overall operational costs that might be a benefit.
Well, again, a lot to unpackage there. I think we're kind of merging a couple of concepts together, but I will address it. One is the issue of 9-hole golf courses, which I think is something that's an option for you, but I don't think it's the kind of the 50-50 split that a lot of people think. Most 9-hole golf courses generate about 40% the revenue of an 18-hole course and have about 60% of the expenses. And it's not hard to really imagine why that would be. You still got to have a general manager, a superintendent, and they're managing a smaller property, but it's the same. So you really don't cut as much. You don't cut half the expenses by cutting half the number of golf holes. But you do mention something in that question that I think is important for the city to consider at Olympia Hills, and that is the trends in golf, which are moving away from traditional 18-hole green grass golf to a more non-traditional setting, which includes practice amenities, simulators, things like that, which is why we have recommended you invest in that driving range and make it better and make it more convenient and easier to use and provide, food and beverage outlets out there, maybe even lights for night use if you could do it, music playing, adult beverages, as you mentioned, all of that. Yeah, I've seen a lot of success with that everywhere I go. So there's real potential for that. Maybe even putting up simulators or something like that somewhere in the clubhouse or in that lower level area, things like that. I think that golfers know that on television there's the whole simulator golf league going on ESPN now. It's indoor golf. It's in one room, not that much bigger than this. That they're playing 18 holes of golf into a screen. I mean, there's interest in that. So yes, there's definitely a trend in golf toward that.
Thank you. I appreciated this information. It really kind of put the golf course in. I've always viewed it as kind of an asset to the community, and I felt like that's the message that I got out of this, that there's value that adds to the citizens, even if they don't use the golf course. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that, absolutely.
But that's hard to quantify.
Yes.
But when I look at, we had like 79,000 people that came to the course, and 32 of those were unique visits, like just,
yes.
Okay. And they were coming from outside on a great majority of you felt like that it's not necessarily an amenity used by the community, but it is bringing people into our community, and at least they're spending money there.
That is correct, yes.
Okay. Trying to think if I have anything else. What do you see as the impact if we didn't do some of those high priority things? It sounds like what would happen is the course would degrade some, and we would end up reducing fees again, which would put us back to what we were doing last year and probably going down that path.
I think that's the most likely outcome.
Okay.
The one thing I've learned in doing this as a golf consultant is you can't cut your way to success. And if your only solution is to cut expenses, you're only going to make the problem worse.
All right. Well, again, thank you for your insight into the course. I appreciate the thought that you put into that.
Richard, I have one question. The city that closed the golf course under a well-planned program and turned it into a city park, how'd they pay for that?
I don't know for sure. I'll have to check. That's East Baton Rouge Parish in Louisiana. I believe it was taxpayer funded, but I can check on that for you. I'm not 100% certain. They might have had some grant money involved in that too.
But the upkeep would still come back into the city.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have any revenue coming into the park anymore like you used to when it was a golf course, and you have to maintain it and mow it and take care of the fields and all of that. So yes, it's a new expense for the county.
Thank you. Excellent consultation. Thank you very much for all the hard work you did. I love the report. It was very informative. Even the negatives were very informative and well presented. I would like to have a consensus of the council to approve this report as written, just for a matter of record. I have a consensus. We're not voting on it or anything, just a consensus of approval of the report.
I agree.
His report is fine.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us. We very much enjoyed doing it, and look forward to kind of keeping track of all of this and seeing where it all goes. Question.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Stay.
Save yourself.
Save yourself, run.
We promised to make it more interesting than not watching paint dry. Okay. Next is staff report with the Public Works.
Thank you, Mayor. I know this is not an official request that came through City Council, but Mr. Rubal meets fairly regularly with the staff, and one of the things he had asked about was, you know, we keep mentioning, or he sees in the budget, the old Public Works yard, and what is it we're going to be doing, and I know we talk about it when we get to the budget season, but I asked Randy if he wouldn't mind spending a few minutes just kind of giving you all the overview of the Public Works yard and what the long-term plan is for it. Thank you, Randy. Somebody's buzzing.
Mayor, Council, I was asked at the request of Ms. Rubal to do a presentation on our Public Works yard that we've been funding for several years. Many of the years we've been cash funding it to do some of the improvements. And let me see if I know how to work this here. Okay. So here's our current conditions out there as of right now. The first one to your left is our current conditions, where the green roof is where we office out of right now. You'll see in that first picture there also where number 3 is, you'll see the old yard, which we call the dirty yard. And then the green field right there is property, which you'll see in the third picture right here. That is a property that we acquired. I couldn't tell you what year I acquired it is. I know it's well over 15 years.
2015,
Yeah,
maybe,
years ago.
2013.
And that was the forecast to expand this yard, because we knew one day we were going to outgrow the current yard that we were in. And then you'll see that in the middle slide is our current condition. The first phase of the work was, we know everything, let me go back to that last picture, is we got a residential, in the third slide, you got a residential neighborhood that abuts that property there. Everything drains that direction. So we knew we've had an impact some of the houses because the houses sit lower than that elevation back there. So we knew we had to bring in some drainage over there to capture if we're making an impervious yard, which we'd be doing. So in this one, the first phase of the project is where it went through council, y'all approved. We did a storm drainage project that took it and discharges it in Red Horse Park. So that was the first initial phase of the work. And then, and that was through our budget process. And then in 2024, we presented our budget right there where funds were put in for the water, $150,000. We also talked about the $6 million debt that you'll be seeing that we'll forecast in the upcoming budget. And then also we funded another $150,000 through because we split water and sewer funding. So it was $300,000 that was budgeted, and part of that money right now that we're doing this year, here's another CIP. This was all presented through our budget process this last year. Part of what we've done right now is we have design fees right now that we've worked on, and this is an ugly picture, but this is our grading plan. That just lays out our topo and how the water all trends down that direction. And then the bottom, I don't know if this one has a laser or not, but there is down at the bottom is where we're going to have a detention pond to capture all that stormwater that goes down that direction. This is in the new yard, which is part of the project, is the awnings that we'll have at the new yard and at the old yard. So this is in progress right now. In manufacturing for our new yard. This is the layout of what the future would look like of that proposed project. Basically, it's a big warehouse is what it is. We do have offices that be in the front. You'll see that with this property is not ideal. It's not level. It's not flat. You see it terraces down on that bottom. Everything starts dropping down that direction as the slope goes. But this is a big warehouse. Basically, it has four different functions. The first one is our street department. You'll see at the top where it shows street. The purple is our utility bay area. The green is for the parks. And then the last one right there is a big warehouse for a lot of our vehicles and all our bulk stuff that would be stored in that particular area right there. And then the front half, the blue, is where We'll have a larger training room. Right now, we're at capacity. We exceed capacity in our current training room with staffing that I have now. It opens up for more office space because we're maxed out currently. And I can mention all departments are pretty much maxed out, but this one here adds growth to our department. And you'll see where it has the break room and everything, amenities that would go with it. The next slide, here's another, and this is all schematic. We haven't started our design contract. We haven't gotten any further in design right now. I got to get the civil portion done before we start going vertical. But right now, this is where we're at with the schematic portion of it. And then this is the rendering that we got, what it would look like. And you can see from the front how it will drop off towards the back going down. But that's a rendering of what the future annex, what we're calling Public Works Annex building. So this is where all the work center would be, all the warehousing. And then the bays, basically the mechanic shop that I have now is occupying 3 bays. We have 2 other bays that office the street, where we house the street sweeper, the water truck, especially during freeze that we have indoors. And the vehicle maintenance would expand into the current bays that we have over there. And that's pretty much it. If you got any questions, but that's where we're at right now, still in the design phase.
Yes, sir. Where am I gonna come drop my crap during cleanup day? I wouldn't want to do it in that front parking lot.
So this doesn't have lasers, right?
I think it does.
Okay, well, I'll just point to it. So basically, right in here, these right here, we'll have it where you come in, you'll drop off, and then circle right back out. We do have it designed to maintain everything in that yard. And it will make it a lot more sufficient where we have everybody going in one direction. We'll have different, with the awnings, we'll have different stations. We'll be able to place different stations where everybody can go with this plan.
Thank you very much, Randy. Basically, to clarify, that is, this $6 million, it will be a bond presented to the residents for approval. Is that correct?
No, this is not. It's a utility. It's not a voter one that you go for votes. They say it's a utility. I forget the term right now.
Utility revenue bond.
Bonds is what it is. Utility, because it's tied to your water and sewer rates, not taxpayer dollars.
It's not tied to property tax, it's tied to water and sewer fees.
Yes.
Okay. So, with this $6 million investment, currently, the way I understand it, the response to work within the community is approximately 80% reactive and 20% preventative. It sort of falls in discussions that we had previously. So basically, I'm trying to understand exactly how the $6 million investment will actually improve what happens in the community as far as service, if that makes sense. I understand that it's going to be a great improvement in the operations of public works. But considering water rights issues, considering essentially infrastructure issues type thing, and the fact that when we deal with big projects, we contract it out, whether it's roads or pipeline burst projects or whatever type thing. So that's sort of the trade-off. I mean, expanding the facilities is great, but we still have this great infrastructure that we both appreciate. $6 million could go a long way toward that infrastructure. So that's kind of where I'm at. And besides that, the residents are going to see higher rates in the end.
So that's why this is the model, right? So you'll see where we budget throughout the year, the different projects. So you'll see where and this is just a small clip of what we put into it. But we'll forecast in here to where we are looking at, the old yard. We look at water, wastewater rehab, which is $300,000. The ground storage painting at $209,000. And you see the projection of water line rehab projects of $300,000 in 2025. We go to $315,000. We go to $330,000. See how it's forecasted in the future. As we build this plan we know what we need to do out in our system. We plan for it. It's a planning mechanism for us. And that's why, the building currently, the one that we're in now is built in 2005, it's 2025, so it's 20 years old. Was built in 2005 for the amount of staffing that we have. We've grown since then, right? So we've maxed out. Currently, I can't hold the inventory that I need to hold for any type of disaster we have in our city. And then the biggest thing that I incur in cost-wise is all the equipment that's exposed, dry rot of hydraulics, our tanks, poly type of tanks that we have, everything that is just sun-baked out there, which is costing us more money at repairs and stuff like that. So this will help out tremendously to save the equipment, the storing of materials in the event that there is a disaster. But just our everyday, I can't keep enough storage. Next to Walmart, that's where I have all those piles out there because I don't have enough storage in the yard. Because I still got to look for more property for that type of storage. But yes, this is our forecast mechanism, and that's why we have Brady here. We're looking at our rates. We're looking at everything on what we need to do from now 5 years out. And so that's all we do in our water wastewater department's plan.
I'm not sure if council's got a copy of that previously. It may have, but I would love a copy of the presentation. Yes.
Yeah, y'all had you had it during our budget process last year.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. How many acres is that property, man?
This was 2 the addition overall.
Of that site?
Of that site, about 4 acres.
4 acres? How many square feet new are we getting?
I wish you'd got me questions ahead of time. Dang it.
All right. I was gonna.
But if you want to I can get you all that. Just let me know what.
Yeah, I was going to crush the numbers and I'll let you one way or the other.
Yeah, I can get you all that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Anybody else? Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, when Councilmember Rubal just threw out the reactionary and preventative percentages, do you agree with that percentage from a standpoint? And is there room, if much of your response time is spent in the reactionary, do you feel like there's a way that we can plan better for that? What percentage did you throw out there for that?
Actually, they came from Randy and
I
online discussion.
So those were your numbers, so that's what you're currently, is there room for improvement in that, where we could be more preventative?
There is, but the type of improvement, preventative that we do is, it's hard. It's hard because you never know what's coming at you, right, and stuff like that.
And then I was going, is that pretty standard? Because it sounds kind of alarming a little bit that so much of it is reactionary, but I think that's also the nature of your work.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Because we have a month's worth of rain, and guess what? Potholes I didn't have before I got out there, so yes.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Randy. Okay. Anything else, start?
Thank you.
Okay, now we're going to go into a public hearing. We've had no one sign up for it, but we're going to go with Ordinance 655U 2025 specific use permit for a Byrd law firm at 2101 Pat Booker Road. Want to give us a preview of an open meeting?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor, Council. So this is the property at 1201 Pat Booker Road. As you may have seen it, it's kind of nondescript. When you travel from that side of town, it was a 1,900 square foot building built in 1964. And for the most recent past, it's been a counseling service center. And so the individual who currently owns it would like to retire, sell the property to Barger law firm, which is currently located in town. They would like to purchase the building and use the entire facility for their law practice. Per the zoning code, a use of that type in the C2 retail district does require a specific use permit. I'll let you know that did go before planning and zoning earlier this month and did receive unanimous vote and recommendation for approval. We did send out 16 notice letters to property owners surrounding this property, and we have not received any responses. The applicant is here to tell his story and answer any questions you may have.
We'll do the public hearing first. It is 7:55. If anyone, no one signed up, but for a public meeting, I'll give you the opportunity to a last second decision. And nobody is jumping up to go.
Unless you want to hear from Mr. Barger now or after the public hearing, so.
Well, would you like to speak now, Mr. Barger?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Mayor and council members, I appreciate the opportunity to be able to come forward today. My name is Jason Barger. I run the Barger Law Firm. I've been a practicing attorney for about 22 years now. Well, we moved my office down here from Austin about 15 years ago, and we set up shop over at 433 Kitty Hawk Road, where we've been renting our offices for the past 7 or 8 years, however long, 10 years, however long, I think 11 years now. We like being here. We love this community. We love being part of this and the services that we're able to offer, both the residents of Universal City, as well as the residents of Converse and Live Oak, Schertz, and Garden Ridge, because we see a lot of clients come in from the surrounding areas. We do have probably 40% of our clientele are Universal City residents. We want to stay here. We do not want to be subject to rent increases, and we would like to make that permanent. The current owner, Catherine White, and I know each other. We were in Rotary together, and when she decided to retire, I kind of had been having my eye on this building because I felt it would be a really good fit for our law firm. We're a small firm. I'm the only attorney. My wife, who had to leave to go be with our children, works with me. My oldest son works with me. It's a family law firm is what we do. We do probate law. We do estate planning. We do a little bit of family law when we need to. So we're not looking to become a big, large, huge law firm. We're going to stay small. We're going to provide services to this community, and we would like to do it. I'd like to stay here. When the building became available, we went into contract with Mrs. White. The day that we went to sign it, we reached out to the city and Mr. Casada, and he said, do you know it's not zoned for what your professional services? And so, we were able to get the clauses in the contract to make sure that we got through this process first. And this is the last step before we're able to conclude the sale and purchase of the property. With that being said, I do ask for the blessing of this council and the mayor, and I appreciate the opportunity to be part of this community and to be able to come up here and stand in front of you today. So, if there's any questions you have, I'll be more than happy to answer.
I'd like to close the public meeting before we can ask questions.
Okay.
And public meeting is closed at 7:59. And now open it up for. Now sit down.
That's all right.
As I promised, more interesting than watching paint dry. Yes, sir.
So do you have client meetings at the Hillside Bistro?
Well, the golf course. Yes, I've managed to secure a number of clients out on the golf course. I myself am a big golfer. My son's a big golfer. We spend a lot of time at Olympia Hills. Our Rotary Club meets out there, as you well know, and I'm out there just about every day. My son plays for Clemens, and so his team practices out there. Everything we heard about the golf course is very encouraging, and I'll say, even though I'm not a resident of UC, it serves as a huge part of our lives. And I hope the council, I'm sure the council does recognize that, but it's not just the UC residents, it's the whole community that really benefits from the golf course. So
Yeah, I like being out there. You see me out there just about every day.
Mine was just a joke, but thanks for that. That's all I've got, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, thank you.
I think we're lucky to have you.
Oh.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Are you planning on making any improvements to the exterior of the building?
Yeah, we are. We're going to, obviously, once we purchase it, we're gonna go and, we're gonna redo the whole inside. It needs to be redone. It's built in 1964. It's very old. It has no windows. So it's a very dark building inside, which for the services that Mrs. White offered, which was counseling, may have been very suitable to not have the public peeking in. We like to have sunlight. We're going to engage an engineer and contractor to find out, can we do this? Will this building allow us to do this? And then whatever questions or permission we need to get from the city to take that out. We're going to obviously put in new signage. We're going to put awnings over the front of it. We're going to look at the cost of probably going to have to repave parking lot because it's pretty old. And then we're looking at putting in covered, some of the covered parking. It's not metal, but I don't even know what you call it. It's kind of the stretch stuff. It looks kind of nice. So either in the front, certainly in the back, but probably in the front too, if we can afford that. And then the side of the wall that if you're heading towards the base, the neighbor there is an auto repair shop or a muffler shop, I believe, and it's kind of set back. And so that whole side of that wall is very exposed to people driving by. I have a vision that I'd like to get a very tasteful mural painted on there that both recognizes Universal Cities, recognizes the military base that's close by, and obviously has some sort of, not advertising, but recognition of what our building is. I have a vision of that. I have not explored that yet. We're trying to get through this process, but I'm going to start looking at muralists to see what that would cost. And but I think that would be what I envision is that it would be a really neat enhancement to that street. It would not, right now, the building does not look very attractive, as you all may or may not realize or know.
It's on me.
Yeah, that's why I asked.
Yeah. And so, obviously we want to make it vibrant. We want to make it look good. It's obviously going to reflect back on my business, but I also believe that it will reflect back on the city and help improve, hopefully, a long-term plan of Pat Booker's, of the projects and the business along Pat Booker looking better as well. So, yeah. So that's what we have planned.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Thank you very much.
You bet. Thank you.
So, any other discussion or anything from city staff?
No, sir.
So, need a vote?
No.
Don't vote.
I'm sorry.
We need a motion and a second and a vote, sir.
Yeah,
We've already
we
closed
did
the
a vote
public
on this one,
hearing.
that's right. So, entertain a
Do we
motion.
vote now or do we vote after?
You could vote now. That's
Okay.
fine.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's right, we did it later. It
We
doesn't
got two,
matter.
that's right, we have two, don't we?
Yeah, yes.
I'm used to doing them individually, my apologies, that's what thrown in there. Okay, we'll open up another ordinance 581, PUD 2023-107A, extension East Loop 1604 in West Byrd. Again, no one has signed up for discussing, but it is 8:04. I'll open up that, and you'd like to give an overview.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor, Council. So as you may recall, about 2 years ago, in late 2023, City Council approved an ordinance that approved the planning and development at the southeast corner of 1604 and West Byrd Boulevard. It was a mixed-use development, and so they've been working out issues with CPS. And so per the PUD overarching ordinance, they have 18 months to break ground, which they have not done. And so prior to that expiration date, they do have the ability to petition council for a 12-month extension, which is what brings us here tonight. So that extension would bring us to May 22nd of 2026 for them to start on the project. That's all I have.
Interesting. Any discussion?
Ken, with the
That's right, my apologies, actually, I'm in a public hearing already, so is anyone from the staff, excuse me, from the city like to discuss comments? 8:05, public hearing is closed, now open for council discussion. Mr. Ball.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Michael, with regard to extensions, basically, if there were a pressing need for identifying the addition of irrigation metering on Putts, type thing, could that be included as part of the extension?
Well, I suppose you could propose that. I think that would be a disservice to the applicant who went through a rigorous process to get where we are today.
Well, they've also delayed,
CPS
and
has
we're
delayed.
facing water shortages. And so basically, as they've delayed, it's an armed court, I think.
Yeah, let me take a real quick look at the Exhibit D that was part of that approval, because we do require, we have a landscaping section within that. And I do believe, Randy, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but they are required to irrigate. Yeah, so they are required to irrigate.
And again, I'm only asking at this point.
So
that
I
it be
can read this directly, maybe this will satisfy your inquiry. Irrigation of all landscaping is required and shall be reflected on an irrigation plan submitted as part of the building permit application. I think that addresses it.
Again, if it's metered.
Yes.
Yeah, it is separate.
All irrigation is metered on commercial properties.
Thank you, thank you.
That's what he wants to know. Yes.
Any other discussion? Call for a motion?
We're still in the public hearing, we haven't gotten to the
I
consent.
closed the public hearing. I closed the public hearing.
So let's close the public hearing.
You do.
I did. You did.
Okay.
What are we going to do
Then
now?
then you can vote.
All the action items are not even until the action.
Wait a
Yeah.
That's next.
Mayor, if you would like to rearrange the rest of your agenda, you can do that and go into the action items on that and then flip back to consent and then go back to action items if you want to clear up these two items right now. Sounds to me like everybody's ready to vote. It's at your prerogative if you want to go ahead and allow them to vote.
Well, I call for a motion,
Okay.
so.
Motion second.
Which one?
Yes.
Are we doing these together? Or are we doing
You
this
have to do
separate?
them individually.
Okay. For ordinance 655U 2025 specific use permit for Barger Law Firm at 1221 Booker Road. Call for the vote, call for a motion. Wait, we did, call for the vote, call for the vote.
Second.
Any discussion? Call for the vote.
Councilmember Putt,
Aye.
Councilmember Goolsby,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Fitzpatrick,
Aye.
Councilmember Bulman. Aye. Councilmember, Rubal,
Aye.
Councilmember Vaughan.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Congratulations. Ordinance 581U PUD 2023-107, East Loop, extension East Loop 1604 in West Byrd.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Vote.
Councilmember Bulman.
Aye.
Councilmember Goolsby,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Fitzpatrick,
Aye.
Councilmember Putt,
Aye.
Councilmember Rubal,
Aye.
Councilmember Vaughan.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Congratulations for that. Does anybody need to take a break?
Yes.
Let's take a 5 minute, let's take a 6-minute break.
6 minutes. 6 minutes. From the door.
Where can I get?
We're ready to start. Thank you for staying. Come up with announcements, city manager announcements.
I'm sorry, did you already do the minutes? Nope.
Now,
What's
we
next?
have-
Thank you. All right, here's my announcements real quick. Let me turn my microphone back on. Happy hours and the Thursday night scrambles have resumed, so if you want to get happy or if you want to put it off tonight, that's the place to be. We have our Easter egg hunt on Saturday the 19th. The Friends of the Library are having their annual huge book sale. So if you have a free little library that you'd like to stock, if you buy books and give them to convalescent centers or hospitals, that's available. And if you just like to read, or you're like me, you buy them and you ship them to your family members as gifts, that's a good idea too. This evening, the Universal City Police Academy Alumni Association has started their classes. So we'll have more members on that. And then the splash pad opens on April 21st, which is after Easter intentionally, in case people ask you. And that's all I have, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. For my announcements and everything, last week, Mary Eddie, myself, and Ms. Turner went to the base to provide certificates for about 30 volunteers from the 501st Training Squadron. Most of these were students, some were permanent party, but it composed of all ranks. They were very, very appreciative of coming out. They gave us a little tour of the area, and quite interesting what their mission is out there. Anyway, we appreciate that. That's really all I've got for this one, because I know there's some good news coming from some of the council members today over the past actions. And I want to thank everyone for staying this far. And from that, I'll start with Mr. Vaughan at the invocation tonight.
Thank you, Mayor. I know the staff probably wants some feedback on the golf assessment and what do we do about it now. And so I made a post on the message board, and using his numbers, I think we have a path forward to support the golf course without more tax subsidies. They probably can't afford everything that he presented, but none of our departments get everything that they want. I think it should be them trying to live within their means as much as they can, and I think he's given us the framework to do that. I still don't think you should have a dedicated tax revenue, but I don't think we have the votes on council to do anything about that now. Because I can see the path with them being able to live within their means, I can't support another budget if you bring one to us that has more tax dollars into it for this next year. I understand if you want to have some of the costs in there, I think you have some money, as I've laid out in the post, to pay for some of that. But just to let you know, I'll be a no vote if there's more venue tax going to the golf course this next year. As far as action items from that report, there's a couple of things I think we should be doing. One is, I think we should be stopping any free city or nonprofit events, making sure they pay the full fare. If we're going to treat them like a business, it's not fair to make them host free events and then us judge them for not making the revenue that we'd like them to make. I think, as Councilmember Goolsby mentioned, he has a good recommendation in the report about increasing the food sales at the turn for the golfers, making that quick and easy, however we can possibly do that, because that's a lost opportunity there. I think that we should be setting clear kitchen hours of operation and advertising that to the public so they know when they can come get food. Right now, I don't think it's very clear outside of the happy hours of when can I come and get a burger at the hillside, even if I'm not playing golf there. I think we should make sure everybody's available to that. That would encourage them to come and use the facility and be more invested in the facility. There's a Appendix B that was in the report that was a suggested report from the golf course to council. I would recommend that we do that at least quarterly so they can report back to us on their rounds of golf and some of the other metrics that he would like us to try to hit, so we know whether we're on track towards his recommendations. And I would just encourage the rest of the council members to state their case on the golf course so that everybody kind of knows where we stand and what the direction of the council members that are here now believe about it. So, thank you, Mayor.
Good comments. Mr. Jones?
So, well, did you make me follow that? All the stuff?
It's your tee off.
I know. No, I did. I thought that was an excellent presentation from him, evaluation, and his recommendations. I would like to have a little bit more one-on-one with y'all regarding how do we get kind of theirs? How do we make that happen? You know, what are the paths forward to do it without it being one giant bite? How can we handle this in little bites? I do see that, the need for these improvements, but I also do really appreciate the idea of let's try to keep it just smaller and a little bit more contained. Unless somebody has a better argument to doing it all in one big bite, then I can listen. But what I would really like to do is make sure that people do look at it as an amenity, right? That it is an amenity to the city. It's different from our splash pad. It's different from our library. It's different from the disc golf course. It's different from Red Horse Park, and it's a different type of amenity. I don't use the parks near like I used to. I still support the parks. I don't use the golf course. I still appreciate the golf course. I don't use the library. I'm sorry, I don't. My kids did. I appreciate the library. So it's an amenity, a city amenity. It's not going to be our goose laying golden eggs, and I really think we need to understand that. That's all I've got, Mr. Michael.
Thank you. Ms. Ashton?
Yeah, when it comes to golf course, I mean, I don't say the same spiel as say about everything. Like, it's been 25 years since everyone voted on it. I'm always just a big proponent of knowing what the public wants and what the public feels and what the public thinks. So for me, I don't think it's appropriate that it's the council, but I also believe in a very different type of government. Like, I don't believe that I'm up here to speak for everyone. I believe that, you know, that in my opinion matters. I think that the residents' opinions matter. So for me, I'm like, I think that the golf course should be self-sufficient, but I think that the voters should get that vote. I think they should get to decide, do you want, you know, to continue to do this or do you not? And I think, like I said, it's just been 25 years. I'm a huge proponent of letting the residents give their feedback, not just giving you my personal opinion, because my personal opinion doesn't matter in my eyes. So it's not really great feedback. The feedback is, I wish all the residents could give their feedback and tell us what they want to do and if they want to continue supporting the golf course with the venue tax or not, but that's not an option on the table. So that's just where I land. That's it.
Swing back this way, Ms. Rubal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Basically, I'll pretty much just align myself with Ashton's comments there. I think they're very reasonable. Large capital projects have to go to people for approval, and that gives them a franchise in the whole process. However, I'm going to change the topic here. Fellow council members, our volunteers are the heart of the city. I move to formalize the certification and recognition of our city volunteer programs at a special council meeting each December that will consist of a program similar, if not the Presidential Volunteer Service Award Program. President George W. Bush said, "Our nation faces a wide variety of challenges. The solution to each problem that confronts us begins with an individual who steps forward and says, I can help." And so I would like to put that on the agenda for possible consideration so that it becomes a certified program where hours are tracked and we recognize in this council our kind volunteers. In that regard, even though they're not all present here today, now essentially Mr. Whitting, Lois, Talley family, and the Barger family, you shouted out to us. We in council shout out to you because it was your efforts that essentially held in check Judson Independent School District. I still would like to see our city have a unified school district rather than pulling our students to fill empty schools that are built outside our neighborhoods. So essentially, great shout out to them. I hope they hear this. Thanks to them. And finally, Mr. Mayor, I would like to ask if the city manager will look into the trash issues that are associated with Meadowbrook and Duke Way and give us an official status of what can be done there. It's somewhat of an embarrassment for all the individual trash containers to be out there for that complex for long periods of time and so forth. I don't think the complex is planned really well, but I know it's an issue for not only the surrounding neighborhood, but also the residents of the community. I think gives them a little more dignity if we can figure out something to do with that. And I just asked the city manager to take a look at that.
I'm sorry, sir, point of clarification. What is the trash issue?
Well, you and I took a tour there, and we saw a while ago, and we saw essentially lines of trash cans
Yes.
that were overfilling, and essentially it looked like a ghetto type thing. And basically, if we can consolidate that trash for pickup in some way, and I know you had mentioned that you were kind of working with the apartment people and the waste management on that, and that's why I wanted kind of to move that forward and kind of get it cleaned up if possible.
So, yeah, I can tell you that we have met with them and the ones on Meadowland. So the fourplexes that you're talking about are treated as single-family units. And so, yes, they each get a trash can and a recycle. So that's 8 for each fourplex. It is a lot, but it's up to the individual property owner to decide if they want to commingle a trash can, and they usually don't, which is why they have the individual. The other recommendation that we made was on Malcolm Landing, where there is a plethora of trash cans on those duplexes because they're so close together, the possibility of removing their recycle bins, which would reduce the amount of trash cans they have by 50%. That's an option too. But the HOA and the management firms have to agree to that, and they're not agreeing to that.
Okay. Well, I'm hoping that despite the fact they're roadblocks, they're still working towards some solution for those areas. You know, one thing I didn't know about the second area, but I certainly know Duke Way needs a little
We're
bit.
aware of what it looks like, and yes, it's a lot of trash cans on trash day, and they don't have a garage, they don't have a storage, they don't have a backyard. All the trash cans are out front.
And I know planning and zoning are confounded by the fact that they can't do anything with it either, you know, that thing. But there's got to be some solution that I hope in your wisdom you can figure out.
We can ask, all we can do is ask again, but again, you know, the individual property owners have the right to the trash service that they want for their residents, and that's what they chose. I agree, it's unsightly. Can't ticket ugly, as we say.
Yes. Question, I've had a couple people reach out to me and ask why we haven't had an attorney at each of the meetings. Kim? Sorry. Our attorney.
We have no city attorney present?
Yeah.
So as I had mentioned before, Megan Santee, our former attorney, passed away. Well, her husband is also a partner of that firm, so when she passed away, he's been out for a long time, so they're down 2 attorneys. The other half of the story is one of the other attorneys with the firm lost 2 family members of that same week. So they are down 3 attorneys. If we have nothing controversial on the agenda, they're asking not to come to our meeting. And thankfully, we have had nothing controversial, so they are dealing with cities that have controversies only at this point that need their assistance. And you know, we have a very mature council and a very mature staff, so they feel comfortable in leading us be. And I will say that they do check with us on every agenda and say, do you need my legal representation? If we needed them, they would be here. But for now, we're trying to let them go through their pain and their suffering and loss, and then the rebuilding of their firm.
Thank you for calling us mature. It applies to most of us. Some of us sometimes. Yes, I wanted to also announce that Heroes Camp is going to be, we're going to be starting to announce that we're going to be accepting applications. It will be rebranded this year into First Responder Cadet Academy, because we got feedback that the kids all didn't want to come because they thought it was too juvenile. But at the end of the week, they were like, this was so cool. So look for more information to come about that. I was really excited to hear about the golf course. I also see a path forward where they're going to require less and less of the venue tax, which will free that money to be spent in other places, which is exciting that they're to that point. I do think that we do need to evaluate the projects that they called out and what that can do for us. And it's nice that we have the venue tax as a vehicle to help pay for those so that we don't have to go out for a bond or other things. And I, as one of the nonprofits that benefits from having a couple of events out there cost-free, one of the things that I think we should, not cost-free, but at no cost for the room, we do pay for the food and the venue and the staff time. I think it's important to remember in some cases like that, we're raising money directly to put back into city budgets. Like, you know, our money when we just had the designer purse bingo, that money in turn went right back in, will go back to our parks department. And so, and I love to hear that, I know that police use that frequently and they are getting free trainings for it. So it's definitely beneficial to the city. And I think before we just make a decision to talk about not allowing that anymore, we really need to probably get an analysis done of what sort of city events are being held there and the purpose before we think that it's, I think there's value that's added to our community by them offering that as an amenity to all of us. So I just kind of urge caution. And overall, I tried to make the point during my comments that I really do see the golf course as an asset. It brings money into our community, and I think we need to remember that a lot of that money is external. It's not our citizens that are going and buying the rounds of golf, but that amenity is here. It's drawing people here. Hopefully they are. We can, potentially look at making an economic study where we look to see, do they spend other money? Is it introducing other businesses? When we did the comprehensive plan workshop, we talked about, they were finding out that a lot of people in Universal City don't go outside of Universal City very often. And I kind of looked at the opposite of that, is what brings people outside of Universal City into Universal City. And we don't have a lot of unique businesses that do that. And the golf course is, one of the primary ones that's owned by the city that brings people in and encourages them to spend money. And I think it needs to really be considered as an asset to everyone, whether or not we use it or not. So that's just my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Putt?
I'm going to piggyback just a little bit on us nonprofits getting the room. We had our first bingo. I'm getting ready to write Randy a check for $22,000 from a 4-hour event. So that's $22,000 that's going into our parks. It has also exposed 200 people to the facility. Some of them have been there before, a lot of them haven't. They come in, they eat the food, they drink the booze, they give me money, and it goes right back in here. You see PAA when we have casino night. People are coming in. It's very beneficial for us to do it. We could go out and pay rent at the Kitty Hawk Event Center, and we could have more people, but we're not exposing our clubhouse to them. So it really, over the years, has paid off. It has made clear to us $40,000 to $50,000 a year for our parks, and I think that's a lot to be said right there. I want to go, the golf course was fabulous. I love that he put it where we can all understand it. I can see where you point to that the citizens do need to have a say in it. But when we're elected, we're here to represent the residents, but we're also here to work with the city to make sure that the city can provide the residents with the care and the needs that they get. So they have elected us here to make some of these hard decisions for them. And that's just kind of where I stand and how I feel my job here is on council. I want to bring up real quickly what's going on up in Austin. People keep saying that they don't want big government, but that's exactly what's getting ready to happen. So I need people to pay attention to the House Bill 878. This gives the state complete control over land usage. So we have no say in planning and zoning. The state can go in and make all of our planning and zoning decisions without our say. And that's really going to be detrimental to us. They don't understand small cities. They don't understand a city like Universal City, where we have an area that has to be updated, it has to be rebuilt, or else we're just slowly going to disintegrate into a small little ghost town. So pay attention to that. Senate Bill 4, everyone's got attention on this, because this is where they're saying they're raising the homestead exemption to lower our property taxes by about $500 a year. So they're saying that they'll give you $140,000, but it only lessens your bill $500 a year. And who wouldn't want that? I mean, I'd love that, but you have to pay attention. That's the money that pays for our fire, our police, and our infrastructure. So that's going to go away. Now, I've heard from one of our senators, and I said, how are the cities going to pay the bill? And it was like, well, they're going to struggle for a few years, but don't worry, we're going to fund it. Well, they said that to us about our disabled veterans. They get 100% free property tax. We are supposed to be getting that property tax reimbursed to us. We've never gotten more than 4.5%. Why? It's never been fully funded. So we don't know what's going to happen down the road of how our city is going to survive without property taxes. We won't be able to pay our bills. We won't have the great programs, our police and our fire, that we're known for. So I think everyone needs to look a little deeper into it. Yeah, $500 savings is a lot, but we also have to watch out for our city. We moved here because we have all these great services for us. And that's all I got, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Let's close that out. Let's go to the consent agenda, which is just consists of the minutes of the March 4th meeting.
Move to approve as amended.
Second.
Any discussion? Call for the vote.
Councilmember Vaughan.
Aye.
Councilmember Bulman.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Fitzpatrick.
Aye.
Councilmember Goolsby.
Aye.
Councilmember Putt.
Aye.
Councilmember Rubal.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Moving down. Resolution 878D2025, resolution suspending CenterPoint proposed effective date for 45 days.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Call for the vote.
Councilmember Bulman.
Aye.
Councilmember Goolsby.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Fitzpatrick.
Aye.
Councilmember Putt.
Aye.
Councilmember Rubal.
Aye.
Councilmember Vaughan.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Ordinance 655U2025 SUP at 2101 Pat Bunker, first reading.
Sir, I'm sorry, I believe that you already did.
Oh, no, we already approved it, didn't we?
You already did B and
It's already
C,
approved,
so we
so-
are down to D and E, which is Hillview pay application number 4 and Hillview pay application number 5, or number 6. We did number 5 on March 4th, if you're wondering why they're out of order.
Okay. So C and D,
Move to approve. D and E.
C, D, and E?
No, not C, just D and E.
I'll second D and E.
Okay. D
Or
and
D,
E.
whatever she wants.
Is it good, second?
Got it?
Got it. Discussion? Call for the vote.
We are going to do these as separate.
The lawyer's not here.
Yes, ma'am.
We can do
I
whatever
know,
we
but
want.
the CDBG people will ask us to do it
Yes.
separately, and we want to get our money.
Okay, and move to Romero.
D.
D.
Okay, thank you. And seconded by Councilmember Goolsby.
Yes.
Councilmember Bulman.
Aye.
Councilmember Goolsby.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Fitzpatrick.
Aye.
Councilmember Putt.
Aye.
Councilmember Rubal.
Aye.
Councilmember Vaughan.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Let's go for E.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Discussion? Vote.
Councilmember Goolsby.
Aye.
Councilmember Bulman.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Fitzpatrick.
Aye.
Councilmember Putt.
Aye.
Councilmember Rubal.
Aye.
Councilmember Vaughan.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Is that up? Ladies and gentlemen, it is 8:40. Adjourned.
Earlier than
I didn't get too much of what we did. Yeah. I told him.